Okay, so we're gonna do the fruit and fizz, then we're gonna look at some functions, and then we're gonna look how that works into building the March Madness bracket. Okay, so everybody have the fruit and fizz open, downloaded? Which is actually, the file's name is drink. Probably wanna go ahead and save it in your folder. Let me save it so I don't mess up the original. Okay, do we all have this open and saved and ready? Open in Excel. So if you need to download it, get it downloaded.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not Google Sheets, but Excel.
The thing where you can like open it in the window and then do download.
Yeah. Okay. So this, I'm going to go ahead and, this is what I usually go through in class while you've got this open. We kind of talked about this. You should have seen this because you've done the training, right? So it's not brand new to you. But just remember that every formula must start with an equal sign. So in your little notes page, you've got a little arrow, right? So this would be the first thing you would want to type in or write down, just to have those formula basics in there. Okay. So every formula must start with an equal sign. And that equal sign is just giving the computer the signal to say, hey, we want to do math with whatever comes after this. If we just type in 2 plus 2, we're not going to get anything but 2 plus 2. Okay, if we type in equal 2 plus 2, we're going to get the math result of 4. Gabe? You with us? Okay. The formulas do follow the order of operations, okay? And then again, I think we've talked about on your keyboard, you've got a plus, you've got a minus, the hyphen is a minus sign. The multiplication is a star, and the slash is the division, okay? You must use the multiplication sign. So in this example, I've got 2 plus 2 inside the parentheses, and then we want to take that 2 plus 2 result and multiply it times 5. In your math class, you may be able to write it like this, where the 5 is just outside of the parentheses, but your computer's not going to understand that. Excel's not going to understand that. So you have to use the multiplication symbol, okay? Okay, so big thing is order of operations. So we'll use those parentheses if we need to. Sometimes I just like to use parentheses to kind of separate, as I'm building like the formula in my head, just to separate, okay, this is what's going to happen first, second, third. Even though order of operations is going to multiply first, and I wouldn't have to use parentheses, sometimes I just like to. And you'll kind of see that today as we build some of our formulas. Okay. Price times quantity. I bring this up because we're going to see this a lot in our activities. Okay, we are, this is a business class, and so a lot of the documents that we do are business documents, even though you kind of don't feel like it. I know some of you are like, I thought this was a business class. Well, it is, all right, because the documents that we create are documents that businesses want created. And a lot of the calculations that we do are related to price times quantity, right? If you have 10 t-shirts and they're $5 a piece, then that's $50 in sales, right? Things like that. So you'll hear me say price times quantity a lot. Percent of means to multiply. Percents of is another one that we're going to see a lot. Sales tax. Sales tax is 8% of the sales. So if we have $100 in sales, well, here we go. Let's say, well, let's do the tax. $100 in sales, our sales tax is 8%. We multiply 8% times 100, and then we add that number to the total to figure out, right? You have a dollar taco, you go buy a dollar taco at wherever, okay? We used to have 99-cent tacos at Taco Cabana. Or I don't know if they're 99 cents anymore.
When you multiply it, is it 0.8 or
0.08% would be 0.08. Okay.
because you move it twice?
Yeah. Now I will say on that note, Excel understands you could type in 0.08, but you can just type in 8% and it'll do it for you. Okay. And that's really kind of a easier way to do it, is just go ahead and type in 8%, 30%, 15%, whatever, right? But if you buy that 99-cent taco, it's going to cost you $1.08, right? Because that sales tax gets added. All right, so, right, sales tax get added. Sometimes we may be talking about a discount. All right, we're going to give people a 30% discount if they pay their bill early. Okay, so we've got to figure out what that discount's going to be. So if they have a 30% discount, their bill's $100, a 30% discount, we're 30% of 100, we're going to multiply. Okay, so if you can phrase it that way, what is 8% of $99? What is 20% of $1,000? Percent of, you're going to multiply the percentage with the number. Okay, so just some things there that we're going to see a lot of, and you need to try to remember. Any questions on that right now? Okay, and like I said, just using the percent sign, you don't have to do the conversion to decimals. You can just type in percent and the computer will do that when it does its calculation. Okay. Okay, so if you look at fruit and fizz, the first column that we're trying to find is sales. Okay, and we have several different drinks and we have 2 different sizes, and every size is a different price for the different kinds of drinks. And this is basically, we're trying to figure out, we're fruit and fizz, okay, and we want to know what our sales were for the month of April. And we know we sold 398 large orange juices, and we sold 217 small orange juices, and those are different prices. Okay, so we want to see what should our dollar amount of sales have been. All right, so we're going to work on those formulas. So the sales of the large plus the sales of the small are going to equal our total sales. So we're looking for this cell right here, F6. So here's that price times quantity for the large, price times quantity for the small, and then we'll add the 2 together. And this is one of my examples where by order of operations, yes, we know it's going to multiply first and then add, but I like to visually use parentheses just to help me through the, so I can see all the different parts and pieces of the formula, okay? In the second thing is filling down, okay? So let's see, on your handout, I have like an A and then I have a B with the, yeah, coming down. So that's just where you grab that handle and you fill it down. Remember when we did it for like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, January, February, March, 5, 10, 15, right? So it's the same thing. You grab that corner and you fill it down, and that formula duplicates and corrects itself depending on what row you're on, okay? And you'll see that happen as well. And then the total of all sales, So looking down here at F12, and I have that marked as C on your sheet. You could go in and you could add the orange juice plus the grapefruit juice plus the apple juice plus the blueberry plus the raspberry, right? But that just is tedious, especially if you get too many numbers. So use that sum function, okay? And we're going to learn more about the functions today more than we would have previously because I want to get March Madness going, okay? So you have that Autosum function button that you can just click on and it'll add that column for you. Okay. All right. David, are you still trying to figure it out? Okay. So let me back up real quick. When you are in the Google Classroom and you click on the file, you've got to click on the 3 dots over here to open a new window, and then it gives you that option to download. Okay? All right, so let me did that help? Okay. All right, so that's just a bigger zoom, and we're going to go through this here together in a second. Percentage of sales. Oh, let me go back. Now we're going to look at percentage of sales. So we did sales, right? 225 times 398 plus $1.50 times 217. It gave me a total for sales here, and then we added them all up. So now I want to know of all of my sales, what percentage is orange juice? What percentage is grapefruit juice? Okay, so maybe somebody comes to me and says, hey, we've got this really great new flavor we think you need to add to your shop, but we only have 6 spigots, right, that we can pull the juice out of. So we've got to get rid of one to add this new one. So I want to figure out which one has the least amount of sales, so that's the one I can pull and put this new flavor in and give it a try, okay? So I would go through and I would look at all of my percentage of sales. So how big a piece of the pie is orange juice versus grapefruit juice versus the sodas, okay? And then I would take the smallest piece and decide, hey, we're gonna pull that out, right? So that's how people can make decisions based on these kinds of numbers, all right? And that's where percentage of sales comes in. And so when we talk about percentage of sales, we're talking about what is the percentage of this piece compared to the whole, okay? So it's a part of the whole expressed in hundreds, okay, because it is the percentage. The part is the sale for each individual drink, and the whole is the total of all drinks. So the part is the total for orange juice divided by the total of all of them, okay, and that's the math formula that we'll use. And you'll hear me say part of the whole, all right? When you do the math, it will give you a decimal answer, and then you'll just have to use your formatting tools to change it to a percent. All right, so for this case, our OJ sales divided by the total sales will give us the percentage of sales for orange juice. I'll give you a second to kind of look at that, write that down, and then I'll talk about this absolute reference. Okay, there's a lot coming at you today, so hopefully you're paying attention, hopefully you're writing things down. We're getting lots of new information today. So we want to be able to fill down and use that fill down option again, so we don't have to type the formula, you know, a bunch of times, right? But I'm going to flip back to this screen real quick. Before we were working straight across the line, right? This times this plus this times this is our total. So we were able to fill this down, and it would change from row 6 to row 7 to row 8 automatically. It did that for us, okay? So that's its natural rule, okay? It's gonna move relative, that's a key word, relative to where it is on the spreadsheet, okay? So when we build this percent of sales formula, and we're taking sales divided by total, and then we fill down, it's gonna fill down to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's good, but that means that this number, if we type in F12, like F6 divided by F12, F12 will continue to move down to F13, F14, F15. Well, there's nothing there. And so you're gonna get error messages. All right, so what we have to do is we have to tell the computer that F12 can't do anything else. It has to stay F12 all the time. And that's what the absolute reference means. Okay, so in that formula that we're typing, the total sales part of that, the F12, can't change. And so we have to make it what's called an absolute reference. That means it absolutely stays the same no matter what. And you use a $ to make that happen. Okay, so it would look like this, $F, $12. That means F will always stay F and 12 will always stay 12. It won't matter where you put that on the spreadsheet, it will always stay F12. Okay, and that little F4 shortcut is a really good thing to remember. So if you type in F4 in a formula and then you hit F4 on your computer on that very top row, that's a shortcut, and it'll automatically put those $ in for you, okay? And then of course we'll use the auto sum to total. And what should that total be? I mean, you should be able to tell me right now what the total in FG12 would be. If all those percentages are a part of the whole, what's the whole in percentages? Nobody's
100%.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Matthew. 100%, right? So when we do this auto sum right here on F, that should equal 100%. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. So on our drink, go to sheet 1. Okay, because this one was designed for notes. Flip to sheet 1. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can all see it better. Okay. So let's start building these formulas. You've got your notes in front of you. So what does it have to start with?
Equal.
Equal. And then we want to take the large price times quantity. Okay, and like I said, I like to use extra parentheses so I can visually see what I'm doing. And then we're just going to click. Like we don't type price, we don't type 225. We're clicking because that's actually in B6. Okay, times C6. So there's my price times quantity for large orange juices. And then I'm going to add that to the price times quantity for the small orange juices.
That's what it's not saying. I know you could. Because I was like doing 2.25 times
No, 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 we don't want to do that. And we don't want to do that because we could save this spreadsheet and we could copy this spreadsheet and make it the same for May and June and July, right? And just change the word at the top.
Yeah.
And then maybe in July we decided, hey, we're going to go up to 250 on our price, right? And all we have to do is change the 250. We don't have to change all our formulas, right? So, okay, so there's that. So our sales is 1,221. And then we want to do that fill down, right? That was part B. So grab the corner, that bottom right-hand corner, that plus sign turns into a little skinny plus sign. And when you click and fill, I'm just going to fill to the blackberry soda. I get those new numbers. Okay, and so when I look at these then, okay, see how it changed to row 7? And it changed to row 8. Okay, so that's one of the beauties of the fill. You only have to, if it's going to be replicated, then you only have to type it once, and then you can use the fill.
I'm
Everybody got
having
that?
trouble finding the like little fill handle.
Can you see on mine that it's kind of got a, like a, it should just be at the bottom right-hand corner. Does it not change? Your plus sign not change?
So it's like changing, but it's not doing anything as like I drag it down.
Can you drag it down? And you've got, and you're using the spreadsheet, right? Okay, so in that case, try this. Select all of the, here, let me delete what I have here. Okay, so select all of this, and then you should have a fill button at the top as well.
Okay, so now it works, but it's just like hashtag names with a question mark. Don't know what happened. Like I put in the normal equation, now it just says names with a question mark.
Did you get the 1221 at the beginning for the answer?
No, it's just names. Like the word names.
Okay, and does it look just like this? Equal B6 times C6 plus D6 times
Yeah,
E6?
that's what I did, but I'll do it again.
Okay. No spaces. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a space.
Whoops. Okay. All right, and then at the bottom, we wanted to do the total sales. You can use the auto sum up here, but because we're going to go ahead and jump into formulas and functions, let's take a look at our function helper. Okay, and so the function helper is this little fx right here. Okay, and I use this all the time. I use functions a lot, but I still like to use the function helper, especially on more complex ones, because this box will give me a choice, and I can always make sure I'm trying to use the right one. It tells me what they're all about. Okay, so if I know that I want to sum these up, right, I'm going to search for a function, and then it'll give me all these lists of sum functions. I will tell you that for BIM 1, you're usually always going to use the simplest version of a function. So now you see here there's some ifs, some products, some Q, okay? But sum is the simplest version of that, and that's the one we would want to use, okay? And then I tell it what I want to sum up, okay? And you don't always have to fill in all the boxes. If it's bold, it usually has to be there. If it's not bold, it doesn't, okay? Another thing to look at is that you're getting a total right here. Again, it gives you a preview of what that total would be. And if you're not sure what to enter, it'll give you some hints down here, okay? So that's why I like to use the function helper, because it gives me lots of hints, okay? So total of all my sales is $5,461.25 for the month of April. Again, you could use the auto sum button as well. Okay. Let me leave that there real quick. Make sure everybody gets it in. Yeah? Okay, so now we're getting to that percentage of sales. We want to know what percent orange juice is of the total. Okay, so we start with the equal sign. We're going to take our orange juice divided by the total. The part divided by the whole. Okay, and that, again, it'll come up in decimal value. Just a real quick percent style up here can change that for you. Okay, right up here with your percent styles. And if you wanted to increase it to be, you know, like 1 decimal, you could. It'll do all the rounding for you.
What was the, it was F6 divided by what row again?
F12, the
F12.
total. Yeah, the part divided by the whole. Okay, so then we're gonna do that fill down without doing the dollar signs yet. So you can see that you're gonna get error messages. And I'm gonna
And
show
is
you.
it okay if I just have like the, if I have it in the decimal form?
No, because I mean, that's where you're gonna start. But like in the instructions and stuff, you'll probably have instructions to say, okay, make it a percentage format, right?
Okay, so then how do we make it into a percent?
It's just using the button up here.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, so now you can see how when we did that fill down, it moved to F7, which is fine, but it moved to F13, right? And there's nothing in F13. And and then it keeps going. This is good, F8's good, but F14 is not. Okay, so do you see the reason why we have to get F12 to stay F12? Okay, so let's go back. And this is where you can use that shortcut. If you hit F4 on your keyboard, it'll automatically put those dollar signs in front of the F and in front of the 12. And that holds it. It makes it absolutely stay the same. It's an absolute reference. And I keep saying those words because that's what your instructions are going to say. They're going to say, create an absolute reference to cell F12.
Miss Martin, what do I do if my F14 doesn't work on my computer?
F4?
Sorry. My F4.
Then you just have to type in the dollar signs.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
If you're on a laptop, you might have to like use a function or an alt key or something to get it to work. You might kind of play with that and see. Function. Did you get that? However, see. Good.
Do you want me to drop this off quickly?
Yeah, do you want?
Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
Also, would it be possible to take back the document camera? Or are you still using the document camera? You took it like right.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay.
I'm trying to think where it is.
That's okay. I
think
can grab it tomorrow.
I think it's in the bag.
Okay.
Okay. I'll
get it.
come by 6.
Okay.
Bring it to you.
Perfect.
Okay. Actually, do you have an extra copy? So I can have 2? Or you're going to give her a copy?
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be good.
Okay.
That's good. Thank you. Okay. So now we have F4 set in there. When we fill down, we're getting percentages. It copies the format that we did on the first one as well. Right? It's nice to be able to just hit that button for the percentage and not have to do anything else to that, right? Like times 100 or anything like that. Okay. So now when I look, F7 divided by F12, F8 divided by F12, you can see how F12 is staying F12 now. And then we can do the auto sum real quick. And it should come out to 100%, right? Because the whole divided by the whole. would be 100%. Okay, how do we do on that? Do you have the same numbers? Okay, go ahead and save it as drink. Or if you want to save it as notes, I don't know what, as long as you know where you can find it, if you typed your notes in there. Because you may want to come back and reference them, especially because you don't have access to me every day, right? We have a lot of gaps, so that's why I thought it'd be important to have the notes too. Okay, everybody good with that one? All right. So let's go ahead, and usually I don't do these on the same day, but let's go ahead and talk about functions. And I'm going to give you this presentation right here because we'll dig into this a little bit deeper later on. But today, like I said, I just want to get the March Madness started, and there's a part of this that you really need to kind of grab at to do. Okay, so function formulas are special formulas that don't use the operators. They don't use the plus, the minus, the multiplication, the division. They use words like equal sum, right? You didn't see a plus sign anywhere in the formula for equal sum. But the Excel understands that what needs to happen with the numbers that are selected in that range. Okay. So there's a lot of different categories. There's math, statistical, logical, there's dates and time functions, there's finance functions, there's trig functions. There's a ton of different functions. So what you're gonna see, and these are, we've already looked at these, every function has at least 3 components. They have the equal sign, the function name, and the argument. So the equal sign, of course, starts it. The function name is the sum. The word sum, the word average, the word count, the word max, the word if. The if function is what we need to be able to do our March Madness bracket with, okay? And then the argument is like the range, like B5 through E5, right? That's the argument. So equal sign, function name, argument. So whatever comes after the function name. So again, different kinds of functions, functions that add, functions that multiply, square root functions. Those are some of the trig functions that are out there, rounding functions. So this one says we're going to find the square root of whatever number is in F9. This one is we're going to round whatever's in B10 to 1 decimal place. Statistical functions, these are the ones that we see with average, count, max, min, because we can do, it's a very simple function, but it can be done with a lot of information, right? With thousands and thousands of rows if we needed to. Standard deviation and variance, we'll get into those a little bit later in more detail, but that just kind of, I usually talk about this a little bit more, but maybe later. I'll come back to those, kind of what they mean. Financial functions, we'll get into these a little bit later too in more detail, but we can find out, what the future value of our money is, what the present value of our money is. If we go buy a car, what's the monthly payment going to be? With the bank charging me interest rates and things like that. If I pay for it for 5 years or 3 years or whatever the case may be, okay? So we'll dig into those. There's date and time and text functions we'll look at. The if function is what we're going to kind of focus on today, because that's, like I said, where we're going to, what we're going to use for our March Madness. Okay, so basically it's a kind of a question. If something is true then this is what I want you to do. If something is not true, then do this other thing, okay? So if I were to write a function that looks something like this, if the total in C4 is greater than 70, then I'm going to see the word pass in that cell. If it's not greater than 70, and that is a false statement, then I'm going to put in the word fail. And the key is the commas. Those commas separate those three parts of that function. Okay? So if the weather equals rain, I need an umbrella, right? Those kind of logical questions. If that's not true, if the weather doesn't equal rain, I don't need anything. And I'm just going to put that, see right here, it just has two sets of quotes. That means it'll just show up blank. Okay? If the temperature is less than or equal to, so there you can see how we write less than or equal to, and then we can also do greater than or equal to. If it's less than or equal to 50, we'll take a jacket. If not, I'm going to wear shorts. Okay, so that's that logical thinking. You're asking the question, if it's true, we're going to do this. If it's false, we're going to do something else. Now, again, that function helper can really help through this process. Okay, so the function helper will bring up a window like this that's going to have the three boxes. The logical test, which is like the question, what happens if it's true, what happens if it's false? And then you would just put those into those three boxes and it'll write the formula for you in the correct format. Okay, so if weather equal rain, that would be what's in the yellow box. I need an umbrella, that would be what's in the green box. The two sets of quotes would mean it just shows up blank, that would be in the gray box. Okay, same thing, temp less than 50, yellow box, jacket, green box, shorts, gray box. Okay, now this is more likely what you're going to see when we really get into financial or to functions. If A10 is greater than 30, okay, so let's say this A10 has the number of days that it took them to pay us, right? If it's greater than 30, we're going to charge them 5% more because it's late. Okay, so I'm going to take the total in B10, calculate times 5%. If it's not, then it's 0. I'm not going to charge them anything extra, right? So those are the kind of ways we use the if function. All right. What color is the apple? If the apple is green, eat it. If it's red, slice it. If it's brown, trash it. Okay? So this would be like an if inside of an if inside of an if. Okay? So if the apple is green, then eat it. That's the argument, right? Here's the condition. Here's the true part. Okay? If it's green, eat it. That's true. For the false part, oh, let's see what I've got the color coding going on. Then for the false part, we're going to ask another question. Now we're going to check if it's not green, is it red? If it's red, we're going to slice it. Okay, so this is the condition. This is what happens if it's true. And then we have a whole nother if that happens if it's false. Okay, so there's the condition of the second if. There's the true part of the second if. And then actually this is a 3 level, right? If it's brown, trash it. Okay, so this again is, that's the false part to this second statement, but it also has its own condition, its own true, and its own false. Okay, so it might look kind of scary. Juma in here thought that looked kind of cool. All right, for the March Madness bracket, you're gonna have to do 2 levels. All right, so you're not gonna do 3 like this one, but you're gonna do 2. You're gonna have the if inside of an if. Right, and that's why I was a little scared about jumping out there and doing this, but it's March Madness. We gotta do it, okay? I didn't want to pass it up. So that is, whoops, real quick. Okay, so that is in here, this little spreadsheet right here. Or it's not spreadsheet, this PowerPoint. Okay, so the function formula notes, that's right there. You can come back to it if you need to look at it. Okay, especially for this last page. Okay, all right, so then also on the March Madness, I've got some notes that we'll go over and we'll talk about how it's gonna work, and then I'll show you on a spreadsheet. I've also got a link right here for the bracket, because once you get your bracket built, you're gonna have to keep updating it. So you have to keep looking at who won, or not, you're not gonna even pay attention to who won, you're just gonna pay attention to the scores, right? And you're gonna look Excel build the advancing teams, okay? So this just takes you to the bracket. Again, the games start tomorrow. If you'll have to, we're gonna work on how you do it with just borders and the if function, and then you'll have to come in and fill in the names, okay? All right, and then these are the notes. You'll have this with you as well, but let me go ahead and go through it and kind of talk on this. Okay, so this is kind of how we're gonna build it. You'll have a team name, you'll have their score, a team name and the score. So the Spurs and the Rockets played, here's their scores. Basically in this blank, we want to compare the scores and pull the name of the winner, okay? But we have to like check and see if the Spurs score is higher or if the Rockets score is higher, because we're gonna have to leave that blank if it's not matching, okay? So in this case, the Spurs won, right? In this case, we flipped it, whoops. And so the Spurs didn't win, so it stayed blank, okay? Now, that's the first part of it. Then the second part is asking, okay, if the Spurs didn't win, then the Rockets must have won, right? And so we're doing that second if to check that. So in this case, the Rockets won, and the Spurs didn't, so it's gonna stay blank, okay? So again, here's that logical test. If the Spurs score, okay, not their name, but their score, I just didn't have the cell names to put in there, is greater than the Rockets, then the Spurs won, otherwise leave blank. The reverse of that was Rockets is greater than Spurs. So the Rockets won, otherwise leave blank, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this second if and you're gonna stick it in there as the false part of the first one, okay? So when you're building this, you kind of want to think, maybe even write it down. Here's the first one, here's the second one. I'm going to stick the second one at the end of the first one, okay? But you're always going to stick it in as the false part of the first function, okay? So this is what it would actually look like. If the Spurs is greater than the Rockets, then the Spurs won. But if not, check to see if the Rockets is greater than the Spurs, and if that's the case, the Rockets won. Okay. So the commas separate the three parts right here. The logical test, which is the greater than, less than, equal to, comma, what happens if it's true, comma, what happens if it's false. The empty parenthesis, the empty quotation marks, just say leave it blank, okay? Okay, and like I said, you'll be able to see these. And this is kind of generic. We'll get into the actual numbers here in a second. Okay, so logical test, true and false. Logical test, true and false. Looking for both, all of that for both functions. Okay, so what we're going to kind of look at is if team 1 scored higher than team 2, display team 1. But if team 2 scored higher, then display team 2. All right, so here, this is kind of how you'll start building it. The orange is going to be the scores. So you'll have a smaller column for the scores, and then the wider columns will be the names, right? So not Gonzaga, because Gonzaga's not playing. Who's the second team? The second set of, give me 2 teams that are playing.
Carolina and Wisconsin.
Okay, so Carolina would be here, Wisconsin would be here. Once they play their game, you're going to plug in their scores, and this right here is going to be the if function to check those scores and bring the name forward from column A.
So we're not filling out a bracket. We're just like going along with the tournament.
Yes,
Right? Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes. You're not filling out a bracket for me. You're just giving me the results.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so if you can format text and you can fill cells, I know you can format text, we've done it, right, since the beginning of the year. Fill cells, we've done that a couple different times. Merge and center, I think we've done that a little bit. We've practiced it, it's probably in your training that you've done. You can change the column widths, you can copy and paste. We're working on writing an if statement. I'll just have to give you a little bit more help with that than I normally would. And so if you can answer all of these, then you can use Excel to create your March Madness bracket. Okay, so this is actually similar to something, this one was actually done in Excel. Okay, so they added some color, they added a picture. You guys can do that too. So this is kind of similar to what we're looking at. What we're going to do is break it down. Okay, so you've got your 4 regions. So we'll start with a region, and then we'll start with just these 2 games, or these 2 teams. And once we build this little section right here, then we can just start copying and pasting. So you really only have to write the formula 1 time, and then when you start copying and pasting, you edit. Okay, actually you might have to write it twice, because you have to write it differently for the left side versus the right side, because it's coming backwards, right? Notice the small columns for the scores. Okay, so even though this looks like it's 1 line, it's actually 2 columns, right? So you're gonna have space for the name, and then this will be the actual score. So just kind of pay attention to how that's built when you're looking at the widths of the columns. Okay, because this is not just 1 box. This is actually 3 boxes right here. Okay, so you'll pay attention to that. Okay, so then once you build this first one, then you can copy and paste, all right? And then we'll just draw some lines, and then we'll copy and we'll paste to bring it out to the next level, and so on. So let me show you on my example. I'm just gonna close it. Let me find it again. Okay, so this is basically this is the left side. Okay, so this is 2 regions. But really what I start with is this right here. Okay, and if we get that built correctly initially, then everything else is pretty much a copy paste. All right, so and then I wish we could just like flip this, but we can't. So you kind of have to, you're gonna have to figure out how many columns to go out to the right so that you can work backwards to the left, right? If you want, do that. So the right side might be a little bit more difficult because you're going to have to work backwards. But once you get this left side built, then by then you'll be a pro at what you're doing. Okay, so I would definitely work the left side first and then work the right side. Don't try to work left, right, left, right. Okay, so let me show you kind of what I did. Let me zoom in so everybody can see this well. All right, so here's their seed. So I made a smaller column so you can see their seed. And you can find that like right here. So Gonzaga is a 1 seed, Oklahoma is a 8 seed, Missouri is a 6 seed. So you see those little numbers. Okay, so that's their seeding spot for the tournament. So you put that in there, and then you'll put their name. All right, so if we've got, okay, we'll do Oklahoma and no. Well, I'll just do Oklahoma and Missouri just because they're sitting right there. Okay. You only have to type in the names one time, right? Because the if function is going to bring those in. All right, so then I just made up these scores, right? Again, the score is going to be a smaller column, all right? Visually, it looks like it's all one line, but it's 3 different columns, so just pay attention to that, right? So then, you know, once they play this game, I would come in here and I'd put the scores. This right here, you notice that Oklahoma already showed up, right? But if I change this score to 20, Missouri's showing up as the next winner, as the next round. So what I have here is a function, okay? So if D6, okay, and I'm not really concerned about their names, comparing, I'm concerned about the score. If D6 is greater than D8, then that means, if this one's greater, that means Oklahoma won, right? So I want to see Oklahoma show up. But if that's not the case, I need to see if D8 is greater than D6. And if that's the case, then C8 will show up. Okay? And then you've got the empty brackets. So this is kind of what I've got to help you build initially. And I'll probably get you to build it, and then we'll check it and see if it works, and then I'll help you individually work through that. Okay? So now that I've got, let's see, I'm going to delete that. So now that I've got this part built, okay, I can take this and I can copy it. All right, so I'm going to skip one row so that you've got kind of one row between every single team, and I'm going to paste it. All right, and then my next group, my next game is Crichton and UCSB. You'll have to help me remember that. And US, what was it? I don't even know who that is. UCSB. Okay. All right, and then we're waiting on those scores, right? And then we'll put the score in there. All right, so they're the winner. So this is already kind of built. So now I'm just gonna build a line right here. Okay, so I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna do a right border. All right, so now I've got the next level of the bracket ready. Okay, I've already got a formula right here, so I'm just gonna take this, I'm gonna copy it, and I'm gonna paste it. This would be right in the middle. Whoops. Okay, and then you'll probably have to, you know, work on your widths a little bit. Once you know like that, it's gonna be 22, a little bit more, 22, just so it looks nice and even all the way through. Okay. All right, so there's a function there, Okay, but see how it's kind of off? All I have to do at this point is come in here and I'm going to get right on the edge and I'm going to click and drag it up. I'm going to get right on the edge and click and drag it up. And get right on the edge and drag it down. Right on the edge, drag it down. And then it's fixed. So now when I put scores into this game, I don't know where they went. F,
It looked like it was gonna work.
E, let's see. F7 is greater than F. Oh, no, I gotta grab this one. There we go. I gotta grab those. So that those are actually in there twice. So you're gonna actually have to drag those twice. There it goes. Okay. And then I can, so basically then I can take like this whole thing. This is my, and copy it and paste it, right? And then I just go fill in the right teams there. So do you see how after I get this first one built, then it's like I said, just a lot of copying and pasting and adjusting the formulas a little bit? Okay. Right, and then I can bring over here and we'll do that right border again, right? And then I've got a new line here coming out. And then once I get this built, I could copy this whole thing if I needed to, right? Just kind of following what the bracket looks like, okay? So really, you're gonna start with a blank spreadsheet and see if you can get rolling on this, okay? So go ahead and leave some space at the top in case you wanna put, just leave a couple lines at the top. Let me see, where's my, and actually this right here might help because that way you know how far to build it out on the right-hand side. So you might can come in here and look and, you know, at this one. And I think I've got that in the presentation. Oh, I don't have the column headings. But if you kind of go ahead and start building out, notice that I've got a name and then there's a small column for the score and then the next round, a small column for the score, next round, okay? So it's kind of one of those, you figure out where you're going to start, call me in when you need help with the formula, okay? And we've got about 15 minutes, so let's try to get maybe your headings in there and then get at least this first top section going over here, okay? All right, so let me stop share. All right, now that I'm looking at my screen, I see a lot of empty windows. How are you? Do you have any questions? Ready to give it a try? Okay, there are no step-by-step instructions for this, okay? So you're gonna have to give it a try and then ask a question. Give it a try, ask a question. And like I said, if we can get this first one built, get that formula built, then I think you'll be able to get it all finished.
On the first one with the Gonzaga, they don't have an opponent, so what do we do?
Just leave it blank. I think that's a play-in game tonight. Is that right? Anybody that's following basketball? Let me look. So I think it's what like the winner of the Norfolk Appalachian State game. So just
Okay,
leave
so
those
I just kind of skipped to the Oklahoma and Missouri.
yeah. Just leave that blank and then tomorrow they'll have a name in there. So I think that game's tonight or today.
When writing the like if statements, does it like automatically change the names for each section?
As long as you're referencing the correct cell, then the names. No, I mean, in that first one, you're gonna have to type them all in yourself, right?
Okay.
But remember, we just kind of want to start with that first block